we are talking about what happens when you put a shoe on a hoof. I'm not here to tell you that you're wrong or bad for shoeing your horse. I'm here to educate so that when you choose to either go against veterinary advice and rehab a hoof barefoot, or you choose to go the corrective specialty shoeing route, you have all the information. That's the most important thing to me, is that horse owners have all the information so that they can make the decision that's best for them. So the function of the hoof is to, when your horse steps, absorb the shock of that 1,000-pound animal and stop it from reverberating up the body. It is to, provide the landing pad for a comfortable way for your horse to walk, to keep your horse's steps in balance and, basically not send problems up the horse. And a huge part of this is taken away when you put a shoe on a horse. When your horse steps, their whole hoof capsule expands when they put weight on their foot, and then it contracts when it comes up. That action of expansion and contraction pumps the blood through the veins that run down the sides of the back of the hoof. Like if this is a hoof and this is a cannon bone, we're coming down like this. Like they're here and here. So that is your horse's hoof's blood supply. And fresh blood comes in, old blood goes out. Fresh blood comes in, old blood comes out. That action of pumping the blood with the steps is what keeps your horse's heel bulbs and frog really, really healthy. Your horse's heel bulbs and their frog are their concussion absorption. It's what stops a 1,000-pound animal from all those delicate bones in their knees and their hocks and higher up in the horse from breaking down over time of that animal being ridden and working and living hopefully a 30-year lifespan. And what happens when you put a shoe on that horse is now the hoof goes from a living, moving, dynamic part of your horse's body to a fixed object. It can no longer expand and contract. So the number one thing that happens when you put a shoe on a hoof is that you restrict blood flow. That blood flow is compromised. We can see this, we know that it happens because heels start to contract. The most beautiful example of this, and I will put some pictures in this video, is a horse that has lovely, healthy heel bulbs in the back because they don't wear shoes and really contracted heels in the front. This becomes a really unhealthy environment for then thrush and central sulcus cracks and just a myriad of problems that occur when that tissue starts to die and contract. And then you see that concussion absorption is now just slam, 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 slam. I can tell if you put me on a horse blindfolded and I didn't get to see that horse's feet, and I'm even riding on soft ground, I can immediately tell if a horse is shod or if they're barefoot based on how their steps feel to me under saddle. I can feel when a horse is shod because it's a much jerkier motion. The barefoot horse is not sending nearly as much shock up through me in their steps. So when you shoe a horse and you compromise your blood flow, your frog and your digital cushion, your really important soft tissues in your hoof, don't get proper blood flow and they start to degrade. But there is more that happens here. So your hoof wall, at your coronary band up here, you have papillae. They're these little feelers, and they're also in the sole. The horn tubules grow out of the papillae. And those horn tubules are little feelers that are looking for the ground. When they contact the ground, they send signals back up to the papillae and tell the hoof how to grow in real time. Nature is an amazing system. So every time your horse steps, it's giving a feedback system of how the hooves should be growing to be remaining in balance, how the hooves should be growing to be remaining healthy in their current environment. When you put a shoe on a hoof, you no longer have that feedback system. All the horn tubules feel is constant presence of shoe. It doesn't feel the different grounds, the different surfaces, the different environments, the different ways that the hoof bends and moves when the horse walks around on an uneven surface. So if your horse is struggling to grow out balanced, meaning it's growing longer on one side or the other, or something funky is happening, if you balance that barefoot hoof in one trim, then you have basically evened out the horn tubules and set up the hoof to start sending signals to the papillae. Here's how to maintain balance. Here's how we can help. And then you may have to address, lamenesses or tension or all kinds of things further up in the horse's body to help them maintain that. But you have started setting the horse up for healing, basically. If you put a shoe on, the hoof cannot return itself to health. So when we put a shoe on, we've reduced blood flow, which slows down healing, and we've stopped nature's feedback system. Another thing that happens when you shoe a horse, when you prepare a horse to be shod, you flatten the hoof completely so that all of that hoof wall is going to make even contact with the shoe. So if this is my hoof wall in the shoe, you want even contact all around. But if you pick up a beautiful, healthy barefoot hoof, you're going to notice that that hoof wall has concavity. Horses actually, when they stand on a perfectly flat surface, which in real life doesn't happen very often, but if I were to put my horse on my cement patio right here, she would have support pillars at her heels and at her toes. That's where her hoof wall makes contact with the ground the most. That is where the majority of her weight is carried, at the heels and at the toes, at those support pillars. The rest of it is there for catching and helping with uneven ground and uneven movements. So if I take her hoof and grasp it completely flat and remove all that concavity so that I can make it fit perfectly on a flat metal shoe, I have removed her body's natural desire to support its weight on those support pillars. Now, the last thing that putting a shoe on does is it makes it very hard for the sole to exfoliate naturally. A horse on a really good diet, in a really good environment where they get lots of movement and have healthy ground to walk on, that's barefoot, will have very little crumbly dead sole. They'll have healthy, hard soles. Even a horse with thin soles can have really healthy, hard soles given the right diet and environment. When you shoe it, that sole never comes in contact with the ground unless they're standing in really deep mud, which is not an ideal environment. So it loses its ability to naturally exfoliate. It becomes a breeding ground. Dead sole is a breeding ground for moisture and bacteria and thrush. And then what happens over time? Your soft tissue is dying. Your pillars of support are gone. You have an environment for deep central sulcus cracks in your heels, thrush, and unhealthy soles. You have an incredibly tender, sore-footed horse. Very, very unhealthy hooves. So then you think, well, my horse can't possibly ever go without shoes because he can't even go that 10 minutes. When really what's happening is the shoes are creating the unhealthy hoof. And you're in this cycle of needing the shoes to keep the unhealthy hoof functioning. So going barefoot is a journey. Your horse can be uncomfortable for a while, and that's the beauty of boots. Boots are the way to help your horse be comfortable, and it can be a lot of work to get your horse healthy barefoot. So why are we still shoeing horses if we know this? Well, I have a whole nother video on the knowledge gap in farriers and vets, and that's another important piece to understand, and you're going to want to watch that video. But in this specific instance, there's a few reasons why. I am a firm believer, and I say this a lot, your farrier, your shoer, is not shoeing your horse with the knowledge and the belief that it's harming your horse. Your farrier is doing the best with the information he has. Your veterinarian is doing the best with the information that they have. But the world of hoof care is moving faster than these industries are moving. And we know so much more now. If you have an inability to get your horse off of a very high carb, high sugar diet, where they have inflammation flowing through their body all the time, you may not be successful in getting your horse to go barefoot. It's entirely possible that your veterinarian and your hoof care professional may know this. So they're going to say your horse needs shoes because your horse is unfortunately better off being protected with that shoe, even though it's not ideal, than they are just being miserable and in pain all the time because their diet or their living situation, like if they're cooped up in a stall and they can never move around and only get out when you ride them, those conditions are very difficult. So your professionals might know this. And so it might be actually better for your horse to be shod, even though all availabilities to us, it's better for horses to be barefoot. Your professionals might be making an assumption about you, whether or not it's true or not. I'm not saying it's true or not, but they might be saying, this person is not going to stop riding this horse. It takes a year for a hoof capsule to regrow, for diet changes to heal the gut, for inflammation to go away, for true healing to happen. And if you're not willing to stop riding your horse, to stop making your horse be a performance horse, to stop going to shows, to stop doing whatever you're doing until your horse is sound, which in some horses that's weeks, in some horses it's months or up to a year. We can't control that timeline. We can set them up for the most success possible, but depending on how long that horse has been in shoes, how much damage has been done, it can be a long time. If your professional doesn't think you're going to give it the time, they're not going to suggest it because they don't want your horse to go through that initial discomfort only for it to fail. Another reason why your professional might be saying shoes are the only option is because they don't understand. There's vet school and farrier school does not teach how to create a healthy hoof capsule from the inside out using diet and management and movement. They teach how to fix problems quickly because that is what the world wants, even though it's not in the best interest of our horses, or us for that matter. If my fingernails are unhealthy, putting acrylics on them does not make them healthier. It just covers up my unhealthy fingernails. Fixing the problems in my diet, just understanding why I'm growing unhealthy fingernails is the way. It's the same thing. So they might simply not know how to get your horse sound barefoot. So that is where a really good barefoot professional comes in. And they can be hard to find, but so worth it. And now with the internet, we can find you someone to help you online if that is what you need. But it's really important to understand, putting a shoe on your horse, there's a good chance that it'll make an unsound horse sound today, right now. It will take away, it will mask the discomfort. And sometimes we are unfortunately not able to provide everything our horse needs to be successful. So a shoe is the best option, even though it's not best long-term. If you're not willing to help your horse get to help long-term, you just want to ride them now, the shoe is the most humane option. But if your goal is to have a riding partner, a family member who is as sound as possible for as long as possible, barefoot is the way to go. You're going to see less arthritis, less abscesses, less thrush, all of that stuff that causes problems and gets worse as your horse ages is going to be far less if you can initially take the time to establish a healthy barefoot hoof. So if you want to take this route with your horse, this is something that feels like an absolute yes for you, but you don't have the support locally to get it done, please reach out to me. I will help you figure out what needs to be done, figure out who you need to find, figure out your next steps so that you can get started on a barefoot journey for your horse.